Hello, I'm Dr. Brian Fraser, and in this video I'll be showing how to use the chart library called MPAndroidChart to generate a pie graph like this, shown here. So we're going to want to use the MPAndroidChart framework in order to build these charts. You can find it here at their GitHub repository. And if one scrolls down in the basics, there's a nice little guide here as to how to get kind of started, missing a few of the pieces maybe to build a pie graph nicely. So the first thing we want to do is, well, you want to maybe read through this documentation. I'll show you how to kind of go through the process. So I'm going to create myself a new Android project. I'm going to call it Chart Demo. Any API, I think it targets API 8 and above, which is fantastic. And create a main activity. Okay, let me just put this in the right size here. So the first thing I want to do is bring in the appropriate libraries. Now they happen to have done this nicely and integrated it with the Gradle build system that is used by Android Studio. So you don't actually have to download anything manually. So normally you don't touch these, but now we're going to actually edit this Gradle script here. Note that there's two called build.gradle. They're in two different places inside of your actual project. You can find it by going to the project drop down here and see the actual files and folders. But it's sufficient actually for here, it tells us which is which. There's a project one and a module one. So we're going to start by editing the project one. It talks about the project level Gradle, and it wants us to add in the following. So I'm just copying and pasting this from their website. It wants to say for all projects, add this following Maven repository. Jetpacks. Okay, and the next thing is we want to, for the module, or the app, Gradle, we will again want to copy in some code that they've got, and we're going to put in this dependency. We're going to say, well, we depend on this MP charts coming from GitHub. And that's all we need to do. We need to click sync now. It'll resync the project. It'll actually go and it'll tell us that it's downloading it. And in 2 seconds or less, it's pulled in the right files for us. Now the next thing we want to do is actually start adding something. And the usage document here kind of just tells you how to get rolling and then says, please see our documentation. So I'll click on the wiki. I've already got it loaded. And here is their wiki page, some nice descriptions of how to do all this gory stuff. We're going to start by just going through the getting started here. So you can have a look at that. I'm actually going to be doing it for a pie graph. Their documentation walks you through a line chart. So now I have different ways to kind of see this. So the first thing I want to do is go to my activity, main activity here, and I want to put in the thing I want to work with. Now, of course, it's not actually available for me at the moment. I'm just going to go into my text here, and I'm going to want to drop in a new component here. I'm just going to start typing it in by text to start with. This is com.and, well, here it's already figured out all the ones we might want. com.such and such, and this is the charts. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to select pie chart. And then there's a few required properties I've also got to put in. Wait, I need to here, yeah, that's right. I need to say Android ID. I'm going to give it an ID so that I can actually find it inside of my code and work with it. At plus ID slash, and I'll call this one chart. And then I need to set the Android layout height to be match parent, and Android layout height width, pardon me, to also be match parent. And so this will basically take up my entire activity, which is perfectly fine for what I want to do here. I'll leave this text view in there for fun, just to kind of show that other things could be here. And let me just zoom in a few times. It says no chart data available. So this is actually kind of nice. I can work with it here, but I don't have any chart data, which is fine because that's what my actual code is going to be for. So let's come back in here. Let's imagine that I've got some data that I wish to show. I'm just going to copy and paste this in. I just made this data up. Actually, I think this is the rainfall data for Vancouver, Vancouver, BC. I'll just kind of show you here. I'm not sure the units even, but it's at least sufficient for what we want. I get some floating point values, and I'm going to match them up with the January through December. So let's create a thing here called setup chart, setup pie chart. Function doesn't exist. Alt enter, and I will create it. Void returns fine. So the first thing I want to do is go through and process all of this information I've got here, and I want to kind of package it in a way that the graph can read it. So in order to do that, I've got to build a couple different structures, a couple different objects that are going to work myself up into the actual chart. So I'm going to start by populating a list of pie entries. So I say list of pie entries, pie entry, and I'm going to call this one pie entries equals new array list of whatever it knows the type, and that's good enough. Alt enter to accept that, Alt enter to accept the other one. It's now imported list and array list for me. And I want to set these up. So for every kind of slice on my pie chart, I need to have an entry here. I happen to have my data up here, so I need to walk through it saying, okay, give me a rainfall and a month. We're going to pair them together in a pie entry. So I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I less than rainfall dot length, I plus plus. I can't use a for each loop here because I'm trying to go through two arrays in parallel. So now I want to build what it is I'm looking for. So I'm going to say pie entries dot add, and I want to add a new pie entry. So new pie entry. It can take in a couple different things to the constructor. It always needs a value, so that's easy. That's going to be my rainfall sub I. And then I can also pass in a label. Well, I happen to have those too, so that's month name sub I as well. Month names, there we go. Okay, so I now have the data inside of this list. Now I need to start kind of building other things. So the first thing I need to do is build a pie data set. Pie data set, let's just call this one data set, equals a new pie data set here. And to the constructor, I need to pass in two things. First, my list of pie entries. I just happen to have one. That's my pie entries. And the second thing is my label, and this is going to be kind of what it is I'm showing. So I'm going to put in here rainfall for Vancouver. Normally I'd want to pull most of my strings out of a string.xml so that it could be internationalized. See a different tutorial for that. Okay, so once I've got my data in here, I also need to, well, actually we'll come back and we'll look at setting the color in just a minute. So the last thing I need to do is build a pie data object. So pie data, I'm going to call this one just data, equals a new pie data from the class, and I need to here give it, I'll hit Alt Enter to import it, Control P, and it wants to take in, it wants to take in something that implements the pie dataset interface, which pie dataset does. So I'm going to say pass in my dataset. Okay, so I'm kind of working my way up to this. And now I've got exactly what I need to give the chart. So let's actually get the chart. Get the chart. So this is going to become a pie chart type. I'm going to call this one chart equals, and I'm not going to create a new one here. I'm going to find it. So the way I do that is using the find view by ID. So pie chart on find view by ID r dot, and now this is going to be ID dot chart. And that matches up to what I created in my XML. Now I can do a few things on this. The most important one is set the data. So chart.setData. I need to pass in a pie data object, which I happen to have above me, so that's called data. And that's probably good enough for the moment. I'm going to say chart.invalidate to cause it to redraw as well. So let's see if this runs. I'm going to run it in my emulator, which I've got sitting right over here. And with any luck, we will see a pie chart. Not necessarily a nice one yet. We'll get to that. So I don't yet have hello world, so it's still loading. There we go. So here's my pie chart. You can tell I've got the words are showing up here. If I click on like October, it kind of pulls it out a little bit, but it's all one color, which seems to be a terrible default, but it's the way the thing works. So let's go and actually change the color. That may be the most important thing you want to do. You do that on your actual data set here. So data set dot set color. And it wants to take in, oops, pardon me, not color, but colors. It wants to take in a number of different ways to specify it, like an array of colors or something like that. There's a sort of a simple default here is they provide a color template class, and in that there are a few different defined colors. Let's start off with this colorful colors. There aren't many in these. In fact, I'll control click on it and just show you what it is. It is an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 color.rgb values. So you can create your own. This is just a neat place to start. So let's rerun that. Now we actually get the colors here, so that's looking not bad. Again, pick your own colors as you see fit. There's one extra kind of neat thing we can do is cause it to animate. So down here, I'm going on my chart, .set animation, or pardon me, just animate. And I can do it a number of different ways. I'm going to animate the Y, and then you specify the number of milliseconds you want for your animation to carry forth. And each of the graphs has a different way of animating. Let's make it take 1 second to animate. So that's going to be 1,000 milliseconds. Again, rerun it. And now when it comes on, it kind of slides into place nicely, bringing that kind of live feeling to your UI. Okay, that's all I wanted to show. Thank you very much for watching.